Hello everyone, and good morning, and welcome to today's top-line webinar series. My name is Adam Marzola with Business and Decision. I apologize for the delay. We were having some technical difficulties in launching the webinar, but I did want to welcome you to our latest webinar in our top-line series entitled Eliminate Duplicate Parts and Increase Engineering Capacity. A couple quick housekeeping things before I introduce today's speakers. This slideshow is available for download inside the attachment section of this webinar, and it is also being recorded and will be available for download later today or first thing tomorrow morning on our website through our top-line webinar series. We will also have a question and answer section at the very end of today's presentation. We are accumulating all of the questions that are being asked via the question bar, and we will attempt to answer all of them in the time that is allotted. If we cannot answer those, we will follow up with you personally and provide answers to your questions. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Martha Cox and Stan Wood from the EXALEAD OnePart team.
Thanks, Adam, for that introduction. My name is Martha Cox, and I'm with the EXALEAD brand within Dassault Systems. EXALEAD's created a business discovery application named OnePart, and it's designed to eliminate duplicate part creation and accelerate innovation. I'll be presenting a description of the EXALEAD OnePart solution, and my colleague, Stan Wood, will be presenting the demo. Thank you very much. First, I'd like to give you an overview of EXALEAD's parent company, Dassault Systems. Our company is science and technology driven. We are a global organization with over 100 offices in 80 countries. And we have over 30 years in business with 190,000 enterprise customers. We have over 4,000 engineers in our R&D departments around the world, and we reinvest a substantial percentage of our earnings back into R&D. Next slide, please. EXALEAD was started by Alta Vista visionaries. They started the company in 2000 as a consumer and enterprise search engine. Since we are crawling the web, we have over 16 billion pages indexed, which is measured in petabytes of data. EXALEAD is also the fourth largest public search engine behind Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Next slide, please. Why is it beneficial for your teams to reveal and reuse legacy 2D and 3D CAD data? First, to eliminate duplicate part creation. Once your engineering team stops spending valuable time creating parts that already exist in your inventory, you increase your working capital. Also, if your working capital is tied up in excess inventory from all of these duplicate parts, then it's not available for other innovative projects. Most engineering departments are also looking to increase their capacity. If your team uses OnePart, they'll quickly find and reuse parts instead of wasting time creating duplicates. Next slide, please. Thanks. This slide details the information discovery challenge. When a design engineer sits down to create a new design, unless they can rapidly find similar parts hidden inside data sources scattered through the company, they just simply recreate the part rather than spend unproductive time searching for a similar one. And here are just a few of the comments we've heard, and maybe you have too. We have a bottomless abyss of files and documents. If you didn't create it, you can't find it. I know we have many duplicate parts, which can be significantly reduced. And the one that always seems to resonate, I feel like ask.com because other people can't find the files on their own. And it's just faster to create a new design than find a similar one. Stan and I have both heard the last one. We generate files everywhere, put them everywhere, and we can't find them anywhere. So now we're going to stop and have a poll question.
Martha, that's a great lead-in. It jumps into our first poll question, which I will launch right now. We'll give the audience about 45 seconds to vote. But the first question is going to be, do you believe that there is a duplicate part creation issue inside of your company?
Thank you, Adam. It'll be interesting to see the answers.
So far, it looks like we have 2 votes. Both of them saying yes, there is a current issue. I'll give about 15 seconds for any additional voting, and then we'll close this one off. So a couple more seconds, and we'll close it off. Looks like we have a unanimous right now where everybody is struggling and sees a duplicate part creation as an issue inside of their company.
Okay, that's the good news because we have the solution.
Perfect. And then as a follow-up to that same poll question, the second one being, does your engineering team search in multiple databases for similar parts to reuse inside of their design?
Yes, that's key as well. It's very frustrating for the engineers to have to search in many different file systems and databases.
We'll leave the voting open for about another 30 seconds.
Okay, great.
And looks like we got about 5 more seconds, and we'll close off the voting as well. And we can view the results. And we are at 100% unanimous agreement that the engineering teams are searching in multiple different databases to find these similar parts.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then the demo will be quite interesting then for everyone. Okay, so I'll just continue with the presentation here. And this is, how is OnePart different? Well, the engineer on the left takes many days designing a new part. And when that part could exist in a legacy database, while the engineer at the right, using OnePart, finds the right part to reuse in 1 minute. OnePart has an easy-to-use Google-like search bar, which is lightning fast, and you'll be able to see all of this in the demo that Stan is going to be giving. And the next slide, please. This is really the heart of OnePart, and this is what makes the OnePart experience unique. This diagram shows a 360-degree view of all the information related to a part. As you can see, and I'll go clockwise around the circle here, at the top there, you can see who designed it or modified it. And the next icon, the drawings can be searched for specific text. You can also see a 3D signature or 3D shape similarity of the part. And then you can see the parent and child relationship for the part. You can also see the modification data as to when the part was changed. And then you can see the mechanical features, such as the hole dimension, grooves, or chamfer, for example. And then you can see all the related documents concerning a particular part. And additionally, the metadata can be shown from an ERP system like SAP. All you have to do is to type in simple search terms in the center search bar, and you'll have all the information from these sources at your fingertips. The unique feature of OnePart is that you are able to search by both entering text in the search bar as well as searching on shape similarity. And then the next slide, Stan will take over and discuss the demo.
Thanks, Martha, and good afternoon. So what we thought we'd do is run through a scenario here of actually looking for an existing part for reuse. And, you know, as the foundation, we've got a saw that you see in the picture, and there's a specific assembly that connects the handle with the saw body itself. And the scenario here is, does that assembly already exist? Is it reusable? And if it does, what's the right one to recommend? So what our scenario is going to be is we'll go into OnePart, and you'll see here I've essentially brought up a browser screen. That's all you need to access OnePart. You do log in securely, so I've already logged in. So we are controlling permissions and access. But the home screen is very intuitive. You'll see there's a line here that shows popular items. So these are things that people have been looking at or working with within the index. You'll see a line here that represents the newest content that's come into the index since OnePart has been run. And then down at the bottom, we have kind of a free-form discovery piece. That's a default behavior, but these could be configured to be very specific around a project and just show parts that were related to a project if I was on a team. And you'll notice that we're showing mixed content, not only CAD files and information, but also non-CAD files like PDFs and GIFs and various other things that we can index within the repository as well. The selection line up at the top are items that I've personally flagged as favorites, if you will, that'll stay persistent in this line. You'll see some examples of how we can flag those as we go through other screenshots. But this allows me to put a collection of files up here. Maybe I'm reviewing them, maybe I'm validating whether they're usable parts or whether they're duplicates or not. But I've got a grouping of parts, and as I work through and review each one, I can release it from my selection list. That line will shorten, and I'll constantly have, the latest ones that I'm working on will be showing up in the dashboard. So there's a lot of useful functionality just off the home screen for getting oriented and doing some projects. The actual search bar that Martha mentioned in an earlier slide is very Google-like, and we're proud of that, of that association. We support things like type ahead, so you can see where I'm starting to type in characters. We'll show a list of possible matches, and I can highlight and click any one of those and pre-fill the field with those values. And then I can also type in free-form text. And as Martha said, that's really what makes OnePart unique, is the ability to start your search with the text using familiar terms like part numbers or model numbers, as well as using characteristics about the part in simple English terms. So you'll notice here the words are misspelled. So I'm a bad speller. I'm not sure how the technical spelling of a term ought to be. OnePart will actually recognize that and resolve it for you. So you can see here, by typing in a couple of simple terms, I've got a short list of 19 items. In this particular demo environment, we actually have well over 10,000 items. So the search is very fast. You'll see again, I've got assemblies, I've got actual parts and assemblies, and I've got my unstructured content. And the 360-degree view, or the facets that show down the left, are going to show those results in context with the dates and the time frames that they were created or modified. They'll also show source information or project information or other aspects of the items that we build when we actually run the indexing. We'll also show mechanical features, it may be hard to see, but whether there's a shaft or whether there's specific components or a number of holes within a certain distance of each other. So we can use those criteria to help to refine these results as well. Knowing that the clamp that I'm looking for is pretty much a visual located right here, I can double-click on that particular result and look at the additional details about that. So we'll see component attributes, we'll see the file attributes, and then the thing that OnePart does when it indexes all of this content is it recognizes that this part has got CAD information that links it to a parent assembly or a higher level part. So we can do that directly through the CAD information. We can also make linguistical analysis and semantical associations between the terms or the phrases about the item within the deep index that comes along as part of that process, and make those associations as well. So if it's not specifically spelled out in the CAD file, we can also infer it through our linguistic abilities on the back end and build those associations if they aren't already in the system. So you'll see here this assembly is linked with a certain number of parents, and those parents look very similar to the slide that we started with in terms of the overall saw. So and then the other thing we show is the child relationship. So for this particular clamp assembly, I see all the subcomponents that are included in that. The little blue boxes here indicate the number of quantities of those particular items that are in the assembly. And then you'll see we also have related parts, related documents. And we also start to link and identify identical files. So if we've indexed multiple sources and this file got copied across those sources, we'll recognize those and associate them together as well. Again, with the idea that now we can start to do some cleanup and we can manage that process through using OnePart as it comes out of the box. So any of the items that are there, I can click on. I'm looking at one of the subcomponents of the assembly right now just to do a review. Again, same type of screen where I've got component attributes and file attributes that are now very specific to this item within an assembly. I also see some tagging where we've indicated that this is potentially an obsolete part, or it's potentially a duplicate, or it's potentially been reported as a failing part in the field. So as a recommender looking to reuse a part, I may not want to recommend this part. So that's where things like 3D similarity come into play, where now the system will automatically link other similar parts based on CAD characteristics and other things that we run against those files when we build our our index to build the associations for the 3D parts, and we can make recommendations for the different parts. You notice the little stars. If I click on the stars, I can now get into a compare mode and do a side-by-side analysis of the different parts and make a determination as to which is the right part that I want to focus on to make my recommendation. So in this particular case, my reference is a work in progress. I don't have any connotation about the middle part, but the green part on the right has been flagged as a master. You'll notice that everything in red shows what's different from my reference part. Anything in gray is basically the same. So I can see the file names are different, but I can also validate that some of the key characteristics about the part are similar to my reference. So that looks like a suitable alternative that has been flagged as a master part. So I can double-click simply on the icon on the picture of the part and go look at the detail. So this should be a familiar screen by now. Again, the component parts and the file attributes. I've kind of scrolled down a little bit so you can see the relationship here. But we've now linked that to a new parent. And if we take a closer look at that parent, we'll see that that also is a similar clamp assembly. This time it's coming from CATIA. And the first part that we looked at, by the way, was coming out of a SolidWorks project space. So I know already that this is a different content source coming from a different location, but it's now comprised of parts that are masters or current works in progress, or not duplicates, for example, through my research. And I can also see the parent that that's linked to as well, so I can confirm that that is indeed part of a SAW that's relevant to the project that I've been asked to make a recommendation for. So I've very quickly been able to go through a search, a retrieval of parts, creating a list of parts that are relevant for my recommendation. And from this point now, what I can do is I can look at these as a bill of materials, and I can export them as a CSV file. So these could actually be imported into an Excel spreadsheet or loaded into another system as the beginnings of a bill of materials. You'll notice I've got all the relevant part names, the locations, the components, and there's quite a number of other metadata tags, if we could scroll off to the right, that would help identify these unique parts to confirm that they're the right ones to use in a recommendation for a reuse versus a redesign. So I can export that to CSV. I could also simply send this out as a link. So anybody else that uses OnePart, I could give them a link, and they could click on the link and come right back into this page and use this as a reference as they then load up their project. So what we've been able to do now is to find the part that's suitable for this use. We've found it. We're reusing it. It's now included in the project bill of materials, and we're ready to go on, and go about our next step in the design process. So to kind of recap, the scenario was, do I need to design something or build something, or can I reuse a part? And the challenge has historically been there are multiple sources for all of these content types that could come from SolidWorks or CATIA, as you saw in our examples, but they could also come from Teamcenter or any number of other CAD applications. And that's especially prevalent with companies that have gone through mergers and acquisitions, and they've inherited engineering and design from the companies that they've acquired, and they're all using different tools. And potentially they spend a lot of time and energy trying to standardize on one platform. OnePart really makes that unnecessary because we can connect to all those different sources, build a single index and a search platform to be able to go look and query all of that content from those different sources using the 360-degree tool set, the faceted browsing, the drill down examples that you saw, to get to that short list of possible designs. That short list can leverage the 3D similarity, which makes it very easy for end users to pick parts that look the same and then validate through the side-by-side comparison the specific features to confirm that they're suitable substitutes. And then if there's also related documents like bill of materials or spec sheets or design docs or anything else that's relevant to those parts, they can review those as well to help make that decision. So the goal there is that, very quickly, very simple to use tool that allows people to find and reuse those parts in a very short period of time. And as Martha will describe, and as we kind of get into the next phase of this, is that the advantage that this is providing is a very strong ROI in terms of OnePart being able to be installed very quickly and start to provide these kind of results in a very short period of time. So Martha, I'll hand it back over to you to continue talking through the ROI.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dan. As you can see, the business case for OnePart is solid. Whenever your teams are reusing a part instead of designing a new one, you're saving your company significant money. The cost of creating a new part is between $4,500 and $23,000 a year, and we received this from a study by Aberdeen, depending, of course, on your industry. This cost is due to the hours of engineering time to create the part, the warehousing of the part, the inventorying of the part, and, of course, the quality control. It's just far cheaper and quicker to reuse parts you already have in inventory than manufacture new ones. You will also realize increased engineering capacity since your teams are designing fewer parts and reducing unproductive time. Of course, their softer benefits are decreasing your time to market and risk mitigation, since reusing a tested part is quicker and, of course, less risky. So we have another poll question. Adam can bring that up.
Yep. I'm going to launch the third poll question.
Great.
This one is,
thank you, Adam.
You're very welcome, Martha. Is your company concerned with how much time and cost is involved with parts and their duplication? So we'll open this up for about 30 seconds to allow everyone to vote. And about 15 more seconds, and then we'll close out the voting. All right, the tally is in, and we again have a unanimous yes on the votes that were cast that the company is concerned with how much time and cost is involved with the parts duplication.
Okay. Well, there's certainly a solution to that. Thank you very much for contributing. The next slide, please. And as you can see from this slide, typically out of the box, OnePart connects to virtually every PDM data source, from file systems to SolidWorks ePDM, SmartTeam, Innovia, even Windchill and Teamcenter, which of course are non-Deso products. Also, we have connectors to content management sources, such as SharePoint, Documentum, as well as ERP systems, such as SAP and, of course, ETL tools as well. Basically, we don't care where the data resides. We will index all data sources so your engineers have a comprehensive view of all the information about a particular part. And the next slide shows our we globally support all major 2D and 3D CAD formats, such as CATIA V4, V5, of course SolidWorks 2D, 3D, AutoCAD 2D, Pro-E, and of course others. Additionally, we support non-CAD formats, such as Word or Excel documents, even emails, images, and say searching within a PDF, which would be, for example, a bill of materials. And the next slide. This diagram shows the end-to-end security of OnePart. As you can see, index data comes into OnePart from the sources on the left, file systems, Innovia, Windchill, or Teamcenter, each with their own security model. Every user of OnePart has their own security rights, and the data is extracted based on each user's rules. Basically, we preserve the security of the user. Additionally, just in case you're concerned, we're not creating another database of data. OnePart just indexes the data in the sources it's connected to. The users access the data through a web browser, shown on the right there, and they can see through that browser only what that user has a right to see. Up on the top left, you can see that our indexing throughput is 25 documents a second. So the initial indexing time takes a few hours, but after that initial index, the data is always up to date, of course, unless your company is producing more than 25 documents a second, which is a substantial amount of documents. You can also see that we have significant capacity in the center of the slide there. You can see one of our production customers we have indexed 90 million parts, and we've indexed the data for that. Also along the bottom, you can see the investment in infrastructure. So we don't require a large investment in infrastructure, and OnePart's rapidly deployed in days versus months. And the next slide is our benefits slide. As a wrap-up, OnePart's easy to use with no training required. I mean, your employees didn't need any training to learn Google outside as a consumer, and that's basically what OnePart is. We provide quick, valuable results in, like we say, a Google-like web experience across all silos of data. Your team will rapidly adopt OnePart, and this encourages adoption by many departments, such as engineering, purchasing, manufacturing. Duplicate part creations reduced, and that results in cost savings, increasing your engineering capacity, and of course, a compelling ROI. And finally, OnePart's rapidly deployed with minimal hardware costs. We appreciate your time today, and we have one last poll question.
Thank you, Martha. So I'll launch our last poll question. The final poll question is, would your company be interested in finding out more about the potential ROI of parts reused? I'll leave this open for the next 30 seconds for everyone to vote. All right, about 10 seconds left, and then we'll close off the voting.
Okay.
All right, so we have a couple people who have voted yes, a couple that are unsure. So again, thank you everyone for your participation in the poll voting that we had. And then it looks like, Stan, I will kick this back over to you and Martha for some question and answering sessions.
All right, that sounds great. Do we have the question?
So the first question that came in is, how do you calculate the duration and cost of the duplicate parts, or for duplicate parts?
The duration and cost. Meaning, I guess, how long would it take to index the data set?
Well, so this is Stan. So
yeah.
the calculations for the cost of the duplicate parts, those were actually industry analysts. Aberdeen Group actually did a study, and depending on the industry involved, whether it's auto, aerospace, machinery, mechanical, that kind of thing, the cost will vary. But what they did found that was common was the fact that there are duplicate parts and that there is an expense involved in that. So depending on what your infrastructure is, what your supplier arrangements are, we'll see a lot of times customers might have 3 or 4 of the same part that's been designed. They're sourcing it from different suppliers, and as a result, they're not getting economies of scale. Instead of getting a large order from one supplier as a preferred customer, you're getting me too service from 4 suppliers because your quantities are lower. That's one aspect of the cost that's involved. The other aspect is just managing the systems to track the SKUs, the supply and the logistics, warehousing of those parts, and all the administration that goes on to manage and maintain them, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times instead of once. So those costs will vary. There's nothing that we do to calculate that necessarily, unless you're actually integrating in your ERP system. Or your EPDM system, which might have costs that are associated with the parts, and you can run analytics, and you can start to calculate those variables internally because you've got all of the metrics to do that.
Great, thank you, Stan, for that. All right. This time, it does not appear that there's any additional questions coming in. Stan, Martha, do you have any additional comments you want to bring back as we're getting close to the end of this presentation?
Sure, we'll be reaching out to the people that are interested in talking to us. And we do have an ROI calculator tool that we can input your particular data and calculate an ROI for your particular instance. And we thank you for your time.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone, for your time and your questions. As Martha and Stan said, I want to thank you both for your time in doing this webinar for the Business and Decision team and the top line series that we have. As Martha and Stan had said, we will follow up with everyone on the webinar with any follow-up questions that may be submitted afterwards, as well as scheduling some time to discuss about your company and your instance and how the OnePart solution can help reduce these duplicate parts and then increase your engineering capabilities. So again, thank you, Stan and Martha from the OnePart team and this presentation.
Thank you, Adam, and
yes,
Business and
very
Decision.
much. Appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you.
Bye now.